Good evening, and thank you for joining me at Music Today. This is Keitaro Harada. The concept of this show is to bring in an artist each episode and to have a conversation with the artist about a performance we will all watch and listen together. The live component is very important because I encourage all the viewers to comment and ask questions to the artist. Music Today is a bilingual show. The live streams during your evening will be in English, and the shows that broadcast during your morning time will be in Japanese for the fans in Japan. If you want to improve your Japanese skills, you're more than welcome to watch the Japanese shows too. You can actually click on the subtitles around here after the broadcast ends. Without further ado, I'd like to bring in our guest for tonight. Since I cannot hear you applaud, please use clapping emojis, or you can type clap, clap, clap in the comments so that we can get this party started. Please welcome our special guest, pianist Ian Parker.
Good evening.
Hi, Ian.
Good evening.
How are you?
Very well, thank you so much.
Thanks for joining me. Where are you quarantining right now?
I am isolating in Vancouver, British Columbia, where we have beautiful weather and quite a lot of space to spread out. So it's been not as severe as in some other cities in the world. So doing very, very happy here.
Fantastic. Well, I'm so glad to have you on the show. And for our viewers, I wanted to just quickly explain the relationship that I have with Ian. We met last year during the Savannah Philharmonic season opener concert. Ian was our fantastic soloist who played the Gershwin Piano Concerto, and this was our first collaboration. However, we have never met, but the Parker family, the pianists of the Parker family, I've always known and have always had much respect. So I was very excited that I get to work with you. And it was your first time in Savannah, right?
That is right. Yes.
What was your impression of our city and our town?
I often answer that question with lots of compliments, but I mean with such sincerity how much I absolutely fell in love with that beautiful city. I think I checked out pretty much every single square, the parks around town, and just found every single one of them unique and beautiful in its own way, and the charm of the people, and awesome food as well. So it was one of the great highlights of my life, if not my season.
Fantastic. Well, did you get a chance to get this book?
Oh, no. Can I please have a copy?
We'll have to send you this. This is a fantastic book about all the squares in Savannah, 24 of them. And your family even visited during that week, I remember.
My brother is a very selective member of the family about where he travels. And when he found out I was playing in Savannah, he and his wife and daughter decided to make a trip down. And they really had an amazing time with us together. And they were so happy to meet you, of course, and your family. So it was very, very special to have them with me as well.
Wonderful. It's actually interesting, as both of us as traveling musicians, and we go week by week to different cities around the world. It's interesting to see how our relatives react to our travels, because some cities they're like, "I'm there," and some cities they're like, "It's okay, I'll pass."
No, they were on with full swing.
Well, I'm glad. I'm glad that your family visited Savannah. And before we get to the music, I wanted to make sure we recognize some of our viewers today.
Of course.
Sinisha Chidich, who was the concertmaster during the concert that you performed. So Sinisha is watching, and thanks, Sinisha, for your support. All right, let's talk about Gershwin Piano Concerto. Tell us.
Well, there's so much to say about this piece. Gershwin was not all that familiar with orchestral writing, so I think he was quite daunted by the feat to have to write a concerto and to write for full orchestra. And so when I understand he went to consult lessons with Ravel to get an idea of how to orchestrate. And of course, Ravel was saying, "Why do you need to see me? You earn 10 times what I do as a composer in New York as I do in France." But anyway, he did obviously share quite a few tricks of the trade, and really wrote an absolute winner with this concerto. It was absolutely loved by the critics, by the people. It was instantly successful. He, of course, had great success with the Rhapsody in Blue, but this is technically a real, true concerto. And all three movements are truly epic in their own right.
There's there's an article that I want to share to everyone, which was written, I think, by Chicago Symphony. Yes, which talks about the meeting of Ravel and Gershwin, and what kind of conversations they had, and exactly what you just mentioned about how Ravel was like, "You're already such an accomplished composer. Why do you need my advice?" But Ravel was really seeking for how to orchestrate and how to make the beautiful colors come out from an orchestra when he was so used to doing it with a jazz band. So.
Yes, his big band was actually the original orchestration for the Rhapsody in Blue. The orchestra version came later.
Yes. I'm assuming you play both the piano concerto and also the Rhapsody in Blue.
I do.
Do you have a favorite?
That is a really good question as well. To answer you without thinking too hard, the concerto. It is such a great piece with so much in it. It's not just beautiful melodies and happy rhythms and a celebratory feel. It covers the melancholic side as well, and even begins with such an incredible orchestral intro with a famous timpani beginning. But then once the piano comes in and once the piece really begins, there's a bit of a reflective tone to it. So it shows all sides of Gershwin. And without too much time, he breaks right away into his jazzy rhythms and gets really playful. But it's not always necessarily playful. The jazz element sometimes can be a very, very chasing-like quality. It can have a very, very striking quality. It's not necessarily just playful. So he really covers other sides of the spectrum. Whereas the Rhapsody in Blue is always a very happy place. It's always a very triumphant and celebratory place. And the concerto, of course, ends very triumphantly as well. But it does go through quite a bit of these moments of confusion, of tension before the rhythms start to find itself in a simpler manner. So it's a very, very full spectrum piece. The Rhapsody in Blue, I've probably confidently, I could say, played that more than anything else in my life, and I still love it. I still love it. There's if you look at the piece itself, it's actually only a couple of different melodies and motives that connects the whole piece. But I think Gershwin goes through the majority of the keys and tries them all in different keys, which I think gives that touch on synesthesia, the different flavors that you get from G major versus A major. So he does that with that piece quite a lot. And if you look at it, it's basically the same two or three melodies which connect the whole Rhapsody.
A few more hellos from our viewers. Phyllis Albertson, who is a board member of the Savannah Philharmonic. I know she absolutely loved your performance, and she always talks about it. So I'm glad that she is watching. And then from the YouTube channel, we have Richard Kaminuma, who is saying, the structure of the piece is quite unorthodox, which is very true.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead.
The Rhapsody in Blue, if I may say, is a piece, and the concerto, which is not totally concerto style, meaning not a lot of the piece, the orchestra and piano are actually playing together. A lot of the time, it's very soloistic. You have a solo on the piano, you have a solo from the orchestra, and that's why it's a very conversational piece. Obviously, there are places where the two to work together, but it's a very much conversational type of writing in both works.
Fantastic. Let's take a listen. There's so many moments that we get to check in to each other, which is nice about this concerto, just for like safety. And
I didn't feel any safety issues with you, Maestro.
well, you're kind, but you know, it's just nice to have that moment of like, all right, are we together? All right, here we go. Because we could wait for each other for, you know, a whole day unless someone doesn't want to go tonight. So that passage is really difficult. You know, just to get that keys to bounce.
Repeat, yeah.
And you're sort of handicapped because you can't really travel with your own piano all the time.
Wow.
So you have to really go with what the piano's characteristics are and how it bounces or not.
Nice to sometimes have a moment with the technician before a concert.
Yeah. For this concert, we had 2 pianos available for you, which you tried out. Check out the bouncing, and we had a piano technician ready on standby to fix it any way you want it.
Yes.
Right before the show, which is always helpful. Of course. You have to have the tam-tam, right? Hi. It's such a beautiful melody.
Oh, I love that. Oh.
Yeah.
See that? It goes deeper than the Rhapsody.
I really think so.
It goes deeper. Oh, those strings sound so good.
Hey, bravo! Fantastic.
That was a really, really good time, Keitaro-san. Had a great
Beautiful playing.
Had a great time with you.
What is it about those for our viewers who may not be, you know, pianists? What is it about repeating notes on the piano that is always a challenge for soloists?
Every action, meaning the moving parts of the keyboard inside a piano, is different and set up differently. And so sometimes you can get a faster repeat if you actually play the notes towards yourself versus playing away from yourself. And even that the inertia is different from the different approaches you go physically, and you can get a different result. If the odd time, if it's actually very seldomly you come across a piano which really is just suffering technically, a technician can often address that right away, and it's just an adjustment of a little spring in the back of the action. But that is a bit of a scary thing, and there are other pieces, of course, that also involve that, even from Scarlatti to Ravel's Alborada del Grazioso. So a lot of the times, composers trying to write so that the music sounds like a guitar almost, where that's very, very commonly done on a guitar, where you can repeat a note from finger plucking, and to create that sense of ease with an instrument that is not easy to do that can be very challenging. So I mean, you do face sometimes, but then you do get lucky sometimes with a piano that repeats without any effort. So those are really nice to have.
I see. Have you ever encountered a piano that was just impossible?
Well, certainly when the entire pedal mechanism falls right out on you during performance.
Really?
Yes, and during a piece of Ravel which needs a lot of pedal. So Imagine
Oh,
that's
what did you do?
so I finished Ondine, which is a beautiful Ravel solo work, which needs a lot
Uh-huh.
of pedal, completely dry.
That's horrible.
It was pretty rough. But the only saving grace was I played it in a beautiful church cathedral, so the acoustics
Oh, so you have the vibrance.
a little helpful. But what do you do, right? So
Well,
I
you got to keep going.
keep going. You absolutely keep going. I've seen cases where the smallest interruption can cause an artist to stop and address it right there. But when the music starts, it has to finish. There's nothing to stop that.
You could have continued playing and then blew into the piano, like the sound bubbles just flowing a little bit better, like.
Oh, it's so in the moment you have to react. Like, what do? You haven't got time to think, right? So I'll think of that next time it happens.
These are things that, as a conductor, it will never happen. Like, what's the worst thing that can happen to a conductor? A baton flying, a baton breaking, maybe your pants ripping. But like, it's whatever, right? It doesn't change. It doesn't change this music.
Yeah, no, you're right. You have to finish the piece.
Yeah, exactly. Our concertmaster Sunisha says thank you for saying strings sound so good. Compliment. We definitely appreciate it. And then the strings definitely sounded amazing. And the entire orchestra did too. But our concert hall especially it's very helpful for our strings to produce a warm sound. And it blends nicely with the piano. So I'm glad to have our concert hall.
No, but it's important with that piece particularly. Both pieces by Gershwin are extremely heavily orchestrated. So the biggest issue with that, of course, as you knew as a conductor right away, the first thing you said to me is, I understand the balance is an issue. We'll work on that right away. Don't worry. And it was totally fine. But to still maintain that lush, rich quality and still have it so it's not overwhelming the soloist was a very nice treat to have.
Oh, balance is important. And, it's only one of you against 70 of us. So, I can't really be, mean and be like, I'm going to overpower you. It's easy to overpower you. I could, but I won't. So Ian, let's talk a little bit about you and your upbringing. You come from a major pianist family. Tell us a little bit about when you decided to pursue a career in music, or if that it was even a choice, or.
You've kind of answered it. That it was a bit of a very seamless transition from always thinking this is what you do, of course, to actually being realistic at the age of about 16, where I decided this is really what I have to seriously consider doing and I want to aim for. So as you can imagine, growing up in my house, both parents teaching piano all day. Pianos in every room of the house except the restroom, because we had teachers come to our house and teach in our house. So between 3 and 8 p.m., our house was a piano school. So it was very normal. There was nothing wrong with it. There was nothing unique about it. That's just what happened. And it was a very social scene. You would have little hellos with the teachers, with different students. You got to know several different families. And so it was a wonderful place to be. And everybody was always there for a very happy reason. My dad was particularly a strict teacher, so I did see a few tears leaving the studio sometimes. But
that's necessary. It's necessary.
Often they were my tears too. But it was a very normal thing. And then, of course, I always knew I had 2 piano performing cousins who are already rocking the scene in Canada and the U.S. and across the world as well, for that matter. And so that was a wonderful thing to have, because it was always someone to look up to. It was always someone to consult with. And even if I was getting ready for a big concert, I could play for them, and they would give me some more performance advice. Then it became very difficult, because, as you can imagine, I had to set my own identity. It was very, very cool to be the cousin of or the son of, but then that's all I was. And everywhere I went, it was, oh, of course, you're so-and-so's cousin, you're so-and-so's son. But I thought maybe I should change my last name. But then, of course, why would I do that? I'm not going to do that just for that reason. So, but then it was a big piece of inspiration for me, because it made me realize I have to set my own name. I have to set my own flavor. I have to set my own style. And then I was just so happy to come into that and to hear comments like, you are very different than the others. You're very much this way. They're very much that way. So I was happy to know that I wasn't like the others in that way in the performing. But we play together a lot in both with orchestra or in duet or trios, and we have a great time together. So it's a wonderful, happy working relationship we have, and we also have a wonderful social life as well.
That's fantastic. Now, I've met John, and I've worked with him, and very different type of pianist than Ian, for sure. Some of the what I liked about working, with you, Ian, is that both of you are very, very warm personality and wonderful. But Ian, you have this what's the right word? Just this really collaborative nature in you when you work with the orchestra, and you just want to bring this the excitement and the passion comes so naturally in the performance. It's what I really appreciated was you brought something that was so special during the rehearsal, and then we were very happy, but then in the performance it was just like the muse has completely hugged you and brought even more greatness. So I really thought, yeah.
And I have to credit some of my family members for teaching me that, because the best advice I was ever given is concerto playing is just large chamber music. It really is. You're working with lots of other soloists who are playing solos throughout the piece. So when you involve them, it's just a much happier, much more warm and exciting, spontaneous feel, rather than having this rather rehearsed feel. And so I'm very grateful that you mentioned that, because I do want to save a lot for the excitement of a concert. And that's the wonderful thing about live concerts, because you really don't know what's going to happen. And so when you leave a lot of that up to chance, which means you have to develop a lot of trust amongst the musicians, amongst each other. So you in rehearsal, for example, if you hear a wind player or a string player or a brass player shape a melody a certain way, or articulate a passage a certain way, and I give that back to them when I play, I give and then there's this musical language happening. Right. And so right away, I kind of already know these people just by the way we play for each other. I can kind of sense, is it playful? Is it spontaneous? Is it whatever it is? I mean, that's the magic of the language of music, and that's what I love about playing with orchestra.
Well, and then it's a catch ball, right? We're throwing balls at each other, we're conversing, and then what I want to ask you next is about what are the feelings that go through your mind when you collaborate with an orchestra and a conductor you've never worked with. So the first time, just like when you came to Savannah, it's definitely a blind date. You don't know about each other at all. And what is your thought process? And do you have sort of like a motto that you have when you work with a new group?
There are certain things on the list that I want to tick off, but more importantly, I have to say the question also has the answer in it. I have feelings flying all over the place right away. The moment I walk in, I try to say hello to as many people as I can, because usually it's break time before we rehearse. Try to meet them, just get an idea of what the talk is in town, what's everyone excited about. Often I hear musicians talking about what concerts are coming up. So, and I also hear how they're excited about certain repertoire, certain composers. So I already try to get a feel even before I get close to the piano. And then of course, when we meet, it's always a very similar thing. Hello, we know the piece together. Are there any funny spots you want to talk about right away? And often, right away when we address a couple of spots, I get a feel for how you like to arrive there. Sometimes, for example, in a Beethoven concerto, you have these scales going up and down before you have to finally land together at the end of the scale.
Right.
And so often a conductor will say before I even have a chance to say anything is, okay, I like to count this in 7. So 1, 2, 3, once you get to 7, I'll come in. So if that's what's comfortable, they're the one driving this truck with so many people behind them. Absolutely. I will accommodate that. And I've had some conductors say, "Hey, don't worry, we'll figure it out. When you get there, I'll catch you." And so when I hear that, great. So there's going to be a lot of
me.
I know. There's going to be a lot of contact. There's going to be a lot of eye contact together. There's going to be a lot of conversation without speaking together in concert. I love that. And this is what I mean by the spontaneity. Yes, of course, there are certain pieces where, it could be a notoriously, famously difficult place to line up together. So there are certain tricks that we can share that we can do that. And often I'll say, okay, you do it in 7, but I have this other idea where we do like a 3 and whatever, stretch the last beat. But often if it's a spontaneous way of approaching it, it's always more exciting. And that's the point of a dress rehearsal. We can try out the way we do it a couple of times. And often if we're really in sync together with our contact, we're going to get it. And that's what I felt right away. There was a trust with you, particularly right away, and that's what I try to feel for. What level of rhythmic trust, of dynamic trust, all this kind of feeling. So that's what the feeling is right away, shooting out right away. Often I will have a nice chat with the concert master or some of the principals, and they'll often say, "Oh, we love to treat this like chamber, so just be with us, and we're great." And a lot of the time, you probably remember there was a couple of solos where the flutes and the oboes were playing a solo, and I would just be in eye contact directly with them.
Right.
So even though you're definitely keeping everything together, there's this moment where it's just the two of us. So why not play a duo for those moments?
And you're bouncing off ideas, right? You have the big trumpet solo in the second movement that you're gaining ideas from that and then translating it to you. I come from the opera world, so I've worked with a lot of singers, and then in opera we do a lot of rehearsals and a lot of calculation is set, but they're also acting on stage, and in the spur of the moment things can happen, and it's because it's their body. They have you never know on that night if the singer is going to have enough breath or too much breath for that phrase, so you're constantly figuring it out on the spot and have to be spontaneous. So nothing can be really calculated. You have to be flexible, and then that's the exact same way I approach with concerto, because you can be having an amazing day on a dress rehearsal, but maybe you had something that upset your stomach during lunchtime, and then come performance, you're feeling a little bit tired. And so you as a conductor, I have to catch that. So if I'm not the type of person that says, okay, I demand you to be this is divided into 7 or 6, because you just never know. We have adrenaline. Something may happen on the spur of the moment, and maybe the fingers may slip in a different way because of the sweat that you have from all the lights during the performance light setting, that it may go a millisecond faster or slower, and I just have to be like, all right, here it is. But it's the comfort that I have to give you. Just do whatever you want. I'll put it in for you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That adrenaline can change the flavor quite a bit.
For sure. Do you have a favorite composer that you like to perform?
It's a very good question, because I get that question often, and you try to figure out what is my favorite composer. And I know this might sound a little cheesy, but it's the truth, Keitaro. And it's the composer and the piece I'm playing 99% of the time. 99% of the time. And is that because there is a performance element where I'm truly trying to deliver this composer's message as much as I possibly can? Or is it because I really get it when I'm working on the piece? Mm-hmm. Oh, I know why this is written. I know why this had to be expressed. So I know that's true, because I have often been asked to play not just concerti, but even solo works of pieces that I may not necessarily jump at right away or don't necessarily connect with very well. But after you work on it, you start to go, okay, I get it now. It took me a few tries to understand this. And then you really start to appreciate it. And sometimes you start to love it. So in performance, that's a big part of it. The whole adrenaline, the whole excitement of musically sharing things really can ignite that love to what you are doing. And very often it's the piece you're working on. So it's very often that. However, if you were to say to me, if you wanted to play anything, Ian, with me, what would it be? I probably would shoot out 3 or 4 different pieces off the top of my mind. But generally speaking, it's the composer and the piece I'm working on. But if you had to say, name me a couple, I would probably start with Beethoven. I would go into Brahms, Ravel, Rachmaninoff, Shostakovich.
You're more than a couple now. All right, Ian, I'll make it harder for you, much more difficult. You're going to be thrown in a desert island. You can take only one piano score.
I was going to say, honestly, a piece of music written for 2 pianos. Can I have 2 pianos?
No.
Oh, no. I was going to say, and I want you all to listen to this piece because it is amazing.
What is it?
It's Rachmaninoff's Suite Number 2 for 2 pianos.
Okay.
Suite Number 2 for 2 pianos. It is one of the greatest things. And a pretty close second would be the symphonic variations of Rachmaninoff.
That is so. You're coming to a very Rachmaninoff, isolation there.
I've been playing a lot of Rachmaninoff these last 2 months, so it could be a reason like that as well. Beethoven's 7th Symphony, I'd probably take with me. But you say 1 piano score?
Yeah, 1 piano score. Mm-hmm.
Oh, I don't know why I'm thinking this right away. Appassionata.
Oh, interesting.
Beethoven Appassionata, because it strokes the emotions, all emotions, to that extreme level. The most tender moments, the most exciting moments, the most painful moments, and the most absolutely triumphant moments. That's a great concert, the Argerich Freire concert. That's a great concert.
Okay. So those of you who are not familiar with this Rachmaninoff Suite for 2 piano, please check it out. Number 2, Opus 17.
Yeah, please watch that video right on top there.
Great. Favorite style of music to play?
I don't know if it's because of a Beethoven year that I'm just so Beethoven crazy right now. So I also say that because obviously during these times where you're at home, or I'm doing a little bit of virtual teaching, and so I've been covering a lot of Beethoven as well. And there's just so much to discuss, and there's just so much to compare his music to other pieces of his own. So I love working in the classical repertoire for the importance of rhythm, for the importance of even playing, for the excitement, for the simplicity. And that's one thing I've noticed in teaching. Like, is it that difficult, really? Is it that hard to keep something steady? Is it that hard to keep triplets from running? Yeah, I guess it is. And when it is played rhythmically, there's nothing more exciting. It really is the most driving, hypnotically charging kind of rhythmic writing, and it just doesn't get any better than that. And the other reason I guess I'm also excited about Beethoven is I actually, as I told you, I'm conducting a youth orchestra in Vancouver, and because of the COVID rules, we've had to cut the orchestra into 2. So we're now, because of spacing out, we have a hall that can accommodate only up to 35 musicians. So what we are going to do this next season is all 9 symphonies divvied between 2 orchestras.
Oh, fantastic. That's wonderful.
That's why I'm really just how lucky am I and these young musicians that we're going to cover the entire Beethoven symphonies over the year. Like, I mean, that's an awesome way to spend this time, this sabbatical year, if you want to call it. But anyway, it would probably be in the Beethoven world, in the Mozart world, and it could be because I just have a hunger for classical music right now. Now, when it comes to obviously color, the Romantics, the Impressionism, the music between the 1800s into the 20th century is some of the most amazing experiences. So I think right now my love is Ravel and Beethoven.
You touched upon a topic that I wanted to ask you. The final question for tonight is that performing music has become such a routine activity for us for so many years. Then all of a sudden, because of this world crisis, performing in public has become extremely difficult. How has your attitude towards music and performing for an audience changed?
I have to be honest. I've asked the question many times. What if this is to, well, at least for now, what is my point? What am I here for? I've been performing so much that there's such a starvation now to share what I prepare and what I work on. Obviously, I'm upset. I feel a void. I'm sad. At the same time, I feel a little bit blessed because, as you say, we've been at it our whole lives, and that's what we do as musicians. There's hardly any breaks. We keep it going. We have been forced into a sabbatical year or a sabbatical period, which may be more than a year, hopefully not. And I feel blessed in many ways because the questions that you've asked me in this interview are the thoughts I've had during the last 2 months. What are my favorite things about music making? Why do I do this? Can I live without this? I have done a couple of virtual concerts. They were very fulfilling because I got that feeling of performing out and being able to hear some feedback from people, but it was still over a laptop, so you don't get all the nuances of the things I'm trying to share. It made me realize that sometimes the nuances this way have to be done more with rhythm and tempo and time that transmit more clearly than different colors or tender sounds you want to create out of a piano. So I've been much more kind of brainstorming, how do we do this virtually? But I've always had this kind of dark cloud in my mind saying, no, that shouldn't be your end goal. You should obviously try to play as much as you can virtually for now. But yes, I feel a starvation for that. At the same time, it makes me think of the Chopin days. Chopin did not play in big halls. He played in very intimate settings with just a few people, maybe a dozen in a room, usually sitting around the piano. So it's a much more intimate setting. And to be honest with you, Keitaro, I've really had some of my most magical moments playing for friends like yourself privately, or playing for just a few musicians. Hey, I want you to check out this piece and what I'm doing with it. And it gives me that freedom of experimenting certain things when it's just for a small group or just 2 or 3 people. So obviously I'm upset that there's no audience right now, and I'm hurting about that. It hurts. Because it's like cooking a really beautiful, fabulous meal for yourself. Don't you want to share that with people? I mean, you're excited to create a big meal. You're excited to go shop and choose the best products that are available at the market. And when it's just for yourself, frozen pizza sometimes is good enough, right? So it's a comparison I make just because people can relate. Let's just say that restaurants were over forever. Well, it's good. You cook healthier food at home. You get better at cooking, but I mean, it'll take a while before you're going to cook like some of the restaurants that you admire. So there are obviously more cons than pros, but there are lots of great moments of reflection, a lot of great moments of who am I? Why am I doing this? What things can I expand on? Why can't I take advantage of this time to expand some repertoire that I never had a chance to get to? So these are actually important times. And whenever you know that this is a good idea to do that, you never really do it because your life gets busy. But when you're forced to go on a sabbatical like this, you have time to do these things.
It's interesting that you talked about the food analogy, because in some ways we were so used to it. And then the reason why I'm saying that is because for many years on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, we've gotten into this habit of posting a photo of our food and sharing it to the entire world, right? But we never thought that will actually become such a sad reality that now we're sharing our food, but there's no one to really eat it with.
Totally.
Because in the past, you're eating that gorgeous meal with someone.
And you're discussing. And that's the other thing that I really miss as an audience member. Going to a concert, usually with a musical friend especially, and discussing all the nuances and elements about that concert with somebody, or not even a musician for that matter. Why did you like this concert? But that's obviously missing now. So I'm trying to brainstorm a bit more.
Yeah. Well, and then the other thing is, of course, the news and the current situation is just full of negative and sad activities all around the world. However, I'm taking it also as a challenge to make it a positive. How can we deploy this into a positive and trying to come out winning from the situation? One of the reasons why I started this live stream show every day is a reason of that, because I wanted the fans to see the sort of the personal side of us. They see us on stage and they don't really get to know us intimately, but here we're kind of opening our house and then talking freely about, yes, music, but other things. And it just allows people to get to know us better. Sure. And this is a great opportunity right now when we're all staying home.
For now, this is the best, but this also makes me think about the importance that you do these pre-concert talks and how important that is too, because then people get a chance to actually have a preconceived idea of what to expect musically you as an artist. So that always makes it more exciting. And again, if you compare it to cooking, it's like a chef saying, today I found these great products, I found these great things at the market. Let me show you how I decided to mix these flavors together. Then you try it and it becomes a great experience.
One thing I could tell about Ian Parker is that my interaction in Savannah and also here is that it's always about food with you.
I know. You know what scared me is when you showed the picture of you and I looked a little thinner then. Oh, dear.
Ian, I know you're sitting in front of a piano. Can we hear a little bit of piano?
This is not a real piano. I'm kidding.
Thank you. Bravo!
You know where that's from, right?
No, actually, I didn't.
That's the cadenza from Brandenburg 5.
Oh, fantastic!
You would probably recognize it more if it was on harpsichord.
Actually, I've never done the piece, so like it just never has come around my repertoire. Yeah,
when I'm playing that piece.
Okay. A few hello before we end the show. A few hellos. One is pianist and supporter of Samir.
I feel like I know Samir so well. I know his dog really well. I know his house really well. I know his Steinway really well. I know his artwork really well, but I haven't met Samir. Samir, I can't wait to see you. Come to Vancouver, please, once the borders are open.
Yeah, so Samir, wonderful patron of the arts in Savannah and also a fantastic pianist, opened his home for Ian during Ian's visit because Ian needed a grand piano to practice, and Samir has a wonderful instrument. So Ian has explored Samir's house, but has never met Samir. So, but thank you, Samir, for tuning in. We also have Japanese-Hungarian pianist Miyuji Kaneko, who is actually on my show for the 9 p.m. in Japan today. So today's a pianist day for me, from a Canadian Japanese pianist to Hungarian Japanese pianist. So
Mijuji-san.
Fantastic. And then we have a message from Lion Jameson saying that also board member of Savannah Philharmonic, we are starving too for the music and live performances, but there is value in virtual relationship. Adjusting the typical concert audience member to the new norm is the challenge. Totally agree. Yes, so it is what it is. And we have several Japanese audience saying, clapping for your performance. And also a Japanese pianist who graduated from Juilliard and performs very frequently. Yuko Mifune. She's a wonderful, wonderful pianist, and she was also on the show. But we've done several concerts coming up with Yuko and I in Japan. So thank you all for tuning in, and Ian, thank you so much for sharing your time and come visit us again in Savannah.
Anytime. Thank you, Keitaro-san.
Thank you. Thank you all for watching, and tune in tomorrow for wonderful singer Stephanie Foley Davis. Thank you all and have a wonderful night.
Take care.
Thank you for watching. Please remember to subscribe, like, and share this video. ありがとうございました。チャンネル登録、いいね、そしてこのビデオをぜひシェアしてください。